What are states? This is a big question that philosophers, thinkers, and academics have been debating for hundreds of years. But in the simplest terms, states exist to ensure the security and peace of the people. But what happens if people are not safe and peaceful? Throughout history, the answer to this question has never changed. People without security and peace will always revolt. These revolts can lead to historical events. There have been many regional and global changes as a result of popular uprisings. The uprisings in Russia are expected to affect the whole world. But how will this happen? What is happening in the revolts in Russia? Can the Russian rebels really change world history completely? In order to answer all these questions, as Anka Daily News Team, we conducted a comprehensive research. We have summarized the latest developments in the riots in Russia and the analysis of our expert team for you. This research, which is the result of a great deal of effort, contains striking information. You can support us for the continuation of such news and the development of independent journalism. For this, you can use the Super Thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready. While doing research on this topic, we have analyzed a lot of data showing that world history is on the verge of a major turning point. The revolts in Russia will reshape international relations and the structure of states all over the world. The possibility of these revolts spreading to other countries is also very high. Before we talk about the effects of the revolts, let's look at what the Russian rebels are doing right now. The riots in Russia are currently taking three different forms. First, there are the protests of the Russian people in the squares and on the streets. These protests have been going on since the beginning of the war. After Russia decided to invade Ukraine, thousands of Russian citizens started rioting in the Red Square. But the Russian police are very harsh against the rioters. Russian leader Putin does not care about any democratic rules. That's why he's trying to prevent people's right to protest. Russian citizens protesting against Putin are being arrested with very harsh interventions. After the Russian police arrested thousands of people, the impact of the protests diminished. But the Russian people never gave up. Different protests are taking place in many regions of Russia. Russian people started to write many slogans on the wall. This is Putin's war, not ours. This phrase is now heard everywhere in Russia. Russian people have started writing it on the walls. It has become a powerful slogan for Russians against the war. Many artists in Russia are also sharing this phrase on social media. The second method of riots is social media. Russians organize themselves on social media and make the protests more powerful. In addition, social media posts lead to an increase in the number of anti-Putin supporters in Russia. Putin also puts pressure on social media platforms, but the Russian people continue to find solutions against these pressures. The third method of rebellion is Putin's worst nightmare. Some of the Russian rebels are joining the Ukrainian army. These rebels are doing everything they can to make sure that the war ends as soon as possible and Putin's regime collapses. A very famous politician in Russia is leading this group. Former Russian MP Ilya Ponomarev is the pioneer of this group. Ponomarev quickly became one of the most famous MPs in the country for his speeches. Ponomarev has always opposed Putin's aggressive policies. When this war started, he made dozens of calls for Russia to withdraw, but Putin refuses to withdraw. According to Ponomarev, if the Ukrainian army wins the war, it will be the end of Putin's rule. With Putin out of power, Russia can start implementing peaceful and liberal policies. That is why Ponomarev supports the Ukrainian army. Accompanying Ponomarev is one of Russia's most famous journalists, Alexei Baranovsky. Baranovsky openly states that he would like to see Kremlin in flames. And this is not impossible for them, because Russia's most elite soldiers are acting together with them. Ponomarev has managed to bring together the Freedom of Russia Legion, a volunteer unit of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and the Army of the National Republic, a partisan network operating secretly in Russia. These two armies carry out operations against the Russian army. In these operations, Russian ammunition depots are particularly targeted. These soldiers know the Russian army very well. That's why they identify strategic targets when they operate. This unit of rebels inflicts heavy losses on the Russian army. The number of people who want to join this unit is increasing every day. By arresting the protesters, Putin has made them more radicalized. Those who want to protest against Putin are now much braver and tougher, so they are not hesitating to join an armed war against Putin. Also, Putin's arresting the rebels is not working. Many prisons in Russia have run out of space. Russian rebels continue to rebel in prisons. According to the Russian press, many prisons are on strike. The rebellions of Russian rebels are growing everywhere. Experts say that these riots could get out of control at any moment. The anger of the Russian people is growing every day. A massive protest that will spread all over Russia could start at any moment. Russian rebels are making preparations to start a major uprising. The Russian people could change world history as a result of this revolt. And how could this happen? The Russian Federation has a very complex structure. There are 22 republics in the Russian Federation, which is the continuation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Putin, who has ruled Russia since 1999, has been oppressing all of these countries. The Russian Federation has been practicing repressive and aggressive policies for many years. Especially since the Second World War, there has been a great tension between the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc. Russia is considered the leader of the Eastern Bloc, but the Russian people don't want that. Russian citizens want to live like Westerners in order to be a free country, especially as a result of the development of technology and global communication networks. The number of pro-Westerners in Russia has started to increase. Russian people can achieve this by starting a big revolt. Experts analyzing the consequences of the uprising in Russia have important predictions. According to the experts, the first result of a major revolt could be Putin's resignation. If the Russian people take over the Kremlin palace, Putin may be forced to flee Russia. After that, the states of the Russian Federation will increase their demands for independence. The Russian Federation may disintegrate. In this case, Russia will lose its former political power. The new government in Russia will be expected to develop good relations with the West. Efforts will be made to integrate Russia into the West in a short period of time. In this case, the Eastern Bloc will lose great power and the global balance of power will change completely. This could lead to a reduction in conflicts and wars all over the world. The tension between the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc has created great insecurity all over the world. But if the Eastern Bloc collapses, the whole world could become safer. What do you think about the rebellions in Russia, and how do you think they're affecting the course of the war? What do you think about the Russian rebels joining the Ukrainian army? Do you think Putin could be removed from office as a result of a major uprising in Russia? What do you think about the impact of the uprisings in Russia and international relations? Don't forget to share your views with us. Follow us for more updates.